if you do some deep soul searching, you take the time to write it out, what would a perfect life be like? Does that involve being married? Does that involve children? Does that involve adopting children? Does that involve being close to extended family or far from extended family? Do I want to live in an urban environment or a natural setting? What's the climate like where I live? What's the weather like every day? How much time do I want to spend traveling for my job, commuting to my job? These are the things that I think really start to impact how you feel about life. Welcome to the College of Valor, where we empower truth seekers with the art of reason. Hope is the motivation, truth is the goal. Everyday valor is the practice, better living is the result.
Hey guys, welcome back to College of Valor. You are here with Lydia.
And Curt.
On this episode, we are going to be discussing how to build a life. Whew, that is no small feat right there.
No.
And something that we are all still trying to figure out, right?
You know, how to build a life is a lifetime pursuit. So maybe we should subtitle this, How to Start Building a Life.
Kind of overarching this concept are a few different aspects, I think, which involve building your life by taking care of some things like your health, like your physical, your emotional, your spiritual, your intellectual, and your social health. So my first question for you, Dad, is how do you think one can build a better life in the physical sense?
People often head in the wrong direction when they're trying to sort out the kind of life that they want. And usually, one of the biggest drivers, for example, is money. If I have enough money, life will be grand, which is a lie, by the way. It's not true. Um, a lack of money can certainly cause a lot of hardship, but an excess of money doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a good life. When we think about that, health is one of the big detractors from a good life, even if you have enough of everything else. If you're not healthy enough to enjoy it, then boy, that's rough. Health
Right.
really matters. So I once heard a guy that had a really strong opinion about living life well now. And a lot of his viewpoints were not realistic, but he made some really good points. And that here's the American way. What we've been taught over the years is you get a job and you work the job, diligently, and you put a little bit of money in your 401k. And the sooner you start paying, the better, because it's the last year that pays you the most because of compound interest. So the sooner you start putting money in that 401k, the better. And if you work really hard for about 40 years, then there might be enough money in that last year of compounding interest for you to retire on. And then you don't have to work anymore.
Mm.
And if you summarize life that way, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty hollow. The gentleman I was referring to, it was years ago when I heard him speak, and I don't even know his name, but he said, "I don't want to retire in a wheelchair with some sort of a bag to catch my urine and drilling out the corner of my mouth. Did I work for
Right.
40 years for that?" And I think that while that, it's a little exaggerated to illustrate the point, I think that that's something that we really should take into consideration, because striving for success, whatever that is bad advice. People say strive for a success, and I say thrive towards success. So every day has to be successful because you're trying to live a life, not just, reach some distant panacea someday in a wheelchair.
Right.
So
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think our culture makes building that life difficult, especially as a young person growing up?
oh goodness. we never even got to the idea of how to stay healthy. But I guess let me just say, and then we can come back to this in the future. But let me just say that you got to make sure that you're healthy and you prioritize health every day as a young person all the way through. And life is so upside down and backwards, Lydia. It really, really is. When we're young, health kind of generally comes naturally for most people. Not everyone, but generally people are fairly healthy when they're young. It's aging and a bad lifestyle that brings on so many health challenges. But what you're doing now as a young adult, right? As a maybe 18-year-old or a 25-year-old, what you're doing now is going to determine how you're going to feel in 20 years and 30 years and 40 years. So the health habits that you establish today are the ones that are going to be really paying dividends much later in life. So if you don't take care of yourself now, you think, oh, I feel fine right now. Well, you're not going to feel fine if you're not taking care of yourself long term. So that wraps up kind of just the health side. You've got to be healthy now. But then you asked how our society makes it difficult, right? And we can talk about, well, there's so many aspects to that. But let's just use health as an example. Our society does not make it easy to live a healthy lifestyle. You go to work in a corporation, and I'm not anti-corporation, but I am very realistic about corporate America, and I'm gonna call it what it is, right? Corporate America can provide you with great, fabulous opportunities along the way, and that's great. But corporate America, one of their number one rules in almost all companies is get the most productivity for the least amount of money. And they do this by giving you just barely enough to get by on and then dangling a carrot in front of you that you're going to be promoted and you're going to get more and build this amazing career. And, but their business rule is get maximum productivity for the least amount of money. So they're going to try to overload you with tasks and see which people are going to be willing to work not 40 hours a week, but 60, 70, or 80 hours a week. And they're not going to pay you anymore. And then what really is disturbing is down the road, 5 years into your career, 10 years into your career, when you're a really hard worker, you'll get a lot of early success. But at some point, you kind of start to realize that corporations are a pyramid. They have a whole lot of people coming in at the bottom. And then as you start earning more and more money, you start becoming a little less desirable for the company. You start seeing layoffs happen. And then you start seeing people that get promoted and those who don't. And you have to realize that, maybe a manager has 10 employees and maybe there's a middle manager or even a director that has 10 managers that he or she manages. And then that director is one of 10 that reports to a vice president. And then the vice president reports to one president. So every layer that you go up the food chain, so to speak, it's an order of magnitude fewer people. So while companies like to talk about opportunity and how great they're going to, take care of your career and promote you, you have to realize, if 10 managers each have 10 employees, then that's 100 employees and only 10 managers. So you've got to be one of the 10 to get to that next level, and then one of 100 to get to the next level, and one of 1,000 to get to the level above that, and one of 10,000 to get to the level above that. And I think, where are we at director or something? So people start protecting their positions. It's hard to climb that ladder. And once they get up there, some people are nefarious. They'll knock you down because you're a threat to their position. Sad to say, but it's just reality that happens. So, how does society make it difficult to build a life? That's one of the rules. Maximum productivity for the least amount of money. If you're working 60 or 80 hours a week, how are you going to be healthy? What are you going to do that's going to nurture your physical health, nurture um, your spiritual health, your emotional state of being, your relational health with others? How about healthy family life or marriage, right? How do you do those things if you're working 80 hours a week? Especially if you throw in an hour long commute each way. So that 80 hours just turned into 90. I think that it's important to realize that if you're not living a balanced life now, you probably never will. And society loves to dangle carrots and promise some great future. But if you get to the great future, divorced, without a family, and without your health, what kind of a great future have you gotten to? So, you can burn your candle too fast and have nothing left when the time comes. That sounds like a kind of a downer view on life, and I don't mean it to. I really believe that people need to be very optimistic, but also very aware. Don't take the bait, protect yourself, know where you want to be and how you plan to get there, and don't just blindly follow what the boss demands or the corporation demands, because you need to think long term. Life's not a sprint, it's not 100-yard dash. Life is a marathon after a marathon after a marathon after a marathon. And ultra marathoners know that you don't leave the starting line with everything you've got. You save it for the entirety of the race. And you really need to live your life that way. I'm not saying be an underachiever. I'm saying be a balanced achiever. Did I
Right.
address the question a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. So, in terms of perhaps constructing the lifestyle that one might want, um, how do you think one might go about that? Like, do
Mm.
you find your career first? Do you build your lifestyle and then find your career? What are the steps?
Well, like I started earlier, I said life is often upside down. We have to make some of the biggest life decisions when we have the least amount of information. And we also have to take some of the biggest steps in life when we have the least resources to take those steps. And those resources can be time, money, education, experience. So life gets upside down. Um, you probably remember being in high school and someone says, what do you want to do when you graduate from college? Or when you're in elementary school, they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right?
Yeah.
How does a high schooler know what to be or what life would be good? You only know what you value and what you find interesting. But there's not a high schooler out there who, says, well, I know exactly what it feels like to be an airline pilot, so I think I'll just plan to do that. Or I know what a career in engineering will feel like, so I should just be an engineer. No one has that experience yet because you're
Mm.
young. You've not been through it. You get to college and they expect you to declare a major as early as possible. When I went to school, it was interesting. There was a little bit of the leftovers of a previous era where they would say you don't need to declare a major until your junior year, and you need to explore a lot of things so you can kind of find out what your real aptitudes and interests are. That will help you to make a wiser decision in declaring your major, and you can declare your major in your junior year and still graduate in 4 years. Most programs aren't like that anymore.
Wow. I didn't know that it was that late.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah,
for me, it was by the end of your first 2 weeks of freshman year, you had to know, at least if you're going to be a nursing major, like I was going to be initially, you
yeah.
had to know within the first 2 weeks of you starting college.
your brother Luke, my son Luke, is a freshman in college, and he's on a 4-year plan to be a mechanical engineer. If he has to retake one class, it'll be a 5-year plan. They have
Not a lot of room there.
no, they have scheduled the degree program and the academics so tightly that if you get off track just barely, you can't graduate in 4 years. So you have to come in on the first semester of your freshman year knowing what you want to do, or you can't graduate in 4 years. Part of that is good for the universities because these 5th-year seniors make the university a lot of money. And I'm not opposed to taking 5 years to graduate. Matter of fact, I kind of encourage it. Why not take a little bit more time to learn more thoroughly, to enjoy it more, and end up with a degree plan that you really do want?
That's what we did, right?
Maybe it's worth it. But we were talking about how life is upside down. People expect you to declare what the rest of your life is going to be like when you have no experience yet. And nothing's going to change that because when you're young, you don't have much experience. You haven't lived a lot of life. But at least, let's say, as you're trying to sort out your first job, this is one of the places or times of life when I think you have amazing opportunity. A lot of people have been sold this idea of this amazing career, and that's what universities use to build enrollment. They also they like to say how many of their graduates get placed in great jobs and that sort of thing. And the whole thing is about this amazing panacea of a career that's going to happen if you go to that university. I think the reality is that that's a rare thing. There are a few people that experience that for sure, but most people just get a diploma and they kind of are left out on their own. So, what do you do? Where do you go? I've got my diploma. How do I get this amazing career? If you've graduated with a degree like maybe you're a law degree or a doctor or an engineer, then they're fairly clear paths for you. But if you have more of a liberal arts degree, and I'm not opposed to them, the path forward can be really difficult to ascertain. But it doesn't matter even if you have one of the professional degrees like a doctor or a dentist or something like that. You still need to think about life, I'm going to say, differently than what we're normally sold. So normally people say, man, if you make enough money, we've already addressed that. If you make enough money, life is going to be grand. And that's not what makes life grand. It's really not. So rather than just trying to take the best paying job you can find, you probably should do a little bit deeper thinking about it. And the way that I really believe is good is to, instead of thinking about what job you want or how much money you want to make, think about what your lifestyle is going to look like. And when I say lifestyle, I don't mean what kind of car you drive.
Mm-hmm.
When I say lifestyle, I don't mean how fancy your clothes are or how big your house is that you live in. When I say lifestyle, I mean, what does your daily life feel like? And if you do some deep soul searching, you take the time to write it out, what would a perfect life be like for me? Does that involve being married? Does that involve children? Does that involve adopting children? Does that involve being close to extended family or far from extended family? Do I want to live in an urban environment or a natural setting? What's the climate like where I live? What's the weather like every day? How much time do I want to spend traveling for my job? How much time do I want to spend commuting to my job? These are the things that I think really start to impact how you feel about life. More of the rubber meets the road sort of ideas. Even how am I going to eat lunch every day?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
am I going to brown bag it? Is there some sort of a cafeteria nearby? Am I have to drive to a restaurant and drop $20 on lunch when, that adds up incredibly? especially when you're starting out in a career. I mean, if you're spending $100 a week on your lunch, that's $450, let's say, a month just on lunch. And then you're probably not even eating healthy food. These are the things that really make a difference. Or here's another thought. Am I going to have time to exercise? When I say exercise, I don't mean some drudgery that you have to do, but rather some activity you love to do that's physically active, that can help to foster amazing emotional health, physical health for that long game that I was talking about before. When you think about a lifestyle, you should write it out and understand it's an ideal. And an ideal is like, well, if life was perfect, it would be like this. So it's not that you're ever going to reach that ideal, but by describing what your ideal life would be like, you begin to say, oh, well, this kind of a job, no way would that be ideal. Or this career path, ooh, I have to live there. So when
Mm.
you start listing and formulating what makes life feel really rewarding and good, taking into account all of your ideas about life, your belief system, about family, about location, about how you're going to spend your time, what food you're going to eat, all of these things, then I think you're better equipped to say, okay, so I have a goal, one that I may never fully achieve, but I have a goal now. And then I can look through all my career opportunities, my job opportunities to see if those will lead me in the right direction or if they will lead me in the wrong direction. And when you're a young adult, I mean, most people graduate with college debt, with loans for school. And so you have a lot of pressure to start to make money and pay off the debt. And you probably want to buy a new car and you want to live in a fancy place. And I mean, all of a sudden, there are all these financial motivators to try to force you to take a job you may not really want, but it just pays okay. I would say back off and slow down. You might want to realize that you have more freedom now, more opportunity now to try different things, to experience life than you're ever going to have in the future. Because I can tell you, when you get kids, you get a mortgage, you get a spouse, you start getting all the things that become responsibilities that you have to care for, then your options begin to wane and you have to do what you have to do. So right now is the time to explore when you have maximum freedom. And you do that by minimizing the amount of money that you need to spend to get by. And that opens up, I mean, for instance, if you're looking for a job and you have to earn $100,000 a year, then your options for finding $100,000 a year job are extraordinarily small. There just aren't many of those jobs out there for college graduates, young adults. But if you can live on $40,000 a year, now there are thousands of different kinds of jobs that you could get experience in. And this is the best time of life to do that. So I would say try to minimize your financial commitments, maximize your opportunities to learn and to grow. And then whatever you choose to do it based on these values that you came up with when you listed what your perfect lifestyle would look like. Not your dream job, but your dream life. That should really direct your career. And for some people, that may mean you're going to move to a rural area where there are almost no jobs, and you're just going to try to figure it out from there because you know that you want to live in that kind of a setting. And there's nothing wrong with that. For other people, it might mean I want to live right next door to wherever it is I work. And that's probably means that I'm going to be in an urban setting or a semi urban setting. And keep in mind, the corporate office is going to move on you. It's going to go somewhere else because they're going to be chasing the right lease or whatever's a trendy place to be, or they're going to re-engineer the corporate architecture and even move everyone to a different state. So wherever you choose to be, if you really want to be right next to where you work, you're going to have to not buy it, just lease, rent, so that you have the flexibility to chase that corporation if they force you to do that, and they will. Maybe it'd be better just to quit that job. I don't know. But I guess the point of this, before I start to ramble, think lifestyle first. And you get to lifestyle by thinking about what you value, what's really important to you. And the one thing that you hear people say, which is oh so true, on your deathbed, you're not going to review your life and say, oh, I wish I would have spent more time at the office.
Right. Yeah,
You
that kind
will
of
not
reminds me of
say
that
that.
Andy Grammer song where he's like, I don't want to be 85 saying, oh no, I think I missed it. I was chasing money.
That a lot of wisdom in that. Money does matter, but it's not the answer.
Right.
It's fun to get a fancy car for a little while, but I often just say moth and rust.
Right.
And moth and rust is a statement out of the Bible, actually, but it just says that moths eat through clothing and rust destroys metal, and you could add rot and mildew and mold, and everything that we get is material, and it wanes in its specialness, and it ages and it gets beat up. And so shiny new things are fun for a little bit, but they're just shiny new things that are fun for a little bit. There are some things in life that last, you can
Mm.
invest in, and they pay dividends for the rest of your life,
That's
right?
so freeing. I really like what you're saying about building a lifestyle, kind of constructing that, writing it out, figuring out what you want, and then figuring out how your career fits into all of those plans,
Right.
and just kind of shifting your paradigm so that you can experience the fullness that life has to offer
Mm.
all of the wonderful things about living this life, all of the food, all of the cultures, all of the people, the climates, the views, all of the knowledge, all of the things that you get to learn in whatever career you do decide to do that feeds into your skill set. All of
Yeah.
that is so incredible to be able to experience, but I like the way that you're approaching it, just trying to figure out your priorities in the right order.
Well, that really is the goal. And when you do kind of get that sorted out, I'd like to point out that this ideal does become a goal or goals. And then you have to chase those big lifetime goals by making, medium-sized goals that are a little bit closer to the horizon and more achievable. And then you
Mm,
have smaller goals that feed those goals. And then you have goals that might be like what you're going to get done in 6 months, or what you're going to get done in 1 month or a week or today or in the next 5 minutes. So the way that you achieve the big goals is by breaking them down into a lifestyle of small achievements that lead you in the right direction. But I think what's really important is to realize that when you're headed in that direction, you do have the right to change your mind and redirect. But I can guarantee you one thing: if you're not making progress, you won't be able to turn the boat. Like they say, I think I said this on a previous episode, but if you're in a sailboat and you're not underway, you start moving that rudder left and right, the boat doesn't do anything. You can't steer something until it's moving. Jump in your car in the parking lot, turn the steering wheel. I mean, the car groans at you because you're not moving, but once you start moving, you can direct the vehicle. So you have to get moving. You have to get started and have forward momentum and progress, chasing some good, worthwhile goals. But then once you're moving, you'll learn things and you go, wow, that was a cool goal, but I actually think this matters more. And you can redirect because you have movement. And that movement also provides resources because now you have an income,
mm,
right? You're building a network of people that you're building friendships and a social group, and all these sorts of things that can be empowering for you to actually do bigger things. So get moving on it and don't be afraid to redirect. Matter of fact, when you sit down and do that soul searching to figure out what that ideal lifestyle is, you should probably make it a practice to do that at least once a year, maybe once every 6 months. Go back and do it again and say, what did I learn? And how do I feel about this now? Because the earlier that you get the direction going in the right way, the more successful you're going to be long term. But when you're first starting out in your career, oh, you have so much freedom, so much opportunity. The world is your oyster. So experience it, try lots of things. And one thing I would encourage you to do is to realize a job is not your provider. A corporation is not your provider. The government is not your provider. A little anger in my voice on that one. Who is your provider?
You are.
You are. And people get stuck in the corporate rut in a job they can't stand that destroys their health because they think that the corporation or the job is the provider. Don't start
Mm,
thinking that way. You're the one who was capable of getting the job, and you're capable of getting a different one.
right.
You're the
Yeah,
one that
that's
got the
so
college
freeing.
degree, and you are capable of getting a different college degree or another college degree.
Or changing your major a
Or,
few different
yeah,
times.
whatever it takes, but don't fall for the trap. And it is a trap. Don't fall for the trap that the corporation is your provider because then they've got you.
Mm,
And
yeah.
you can get so miserable. It's like living in purgatory. it's I've been there. So you have to remind yourself, I create opportunity around me through directing my life toward the things that I value. And you will have to make sacrifices along the way. The biggest sacrifice is usually I don't get everything I want now.
Mm,
I'm going to have to be satisfied with what I have now. And someday I'll get some other things that I would like to have. But you can't like think I can get it all now because you'll just go broke. It'll ruin your life. Or the other one is don't think I can be happy when I get something someday because then you're just going to be miserable for the rest of your life. Honestly, if you're not satisfied now with your circumstance, you may never be satisfied in your entire life.
yeah, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It just keeps moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Optical illusion. Um, Now, there are some life circumstances that are horrible, and you should probably look for ways to get out of them. But the reality is, when we start wanting more and more and more, and we're not satisfied, then we need to do some soul searching and learn how to be satisfied on the inside because more on the outside won't ever get you there.
Yeah, man, that's so true. I had to kind of check myself on that recently just to figure out how to be really present and really satisfied with where I'm at and um still keeping in mind my goals and my hopes and dreams for the future, but just deciding to thrive where I'm at and be present where I'm at.
Yes. There's so much wisdom in that. If you can learn to be satisfied now, then you can live a life with a lot of
Mm.
satisfaction.
It's brought
I
me a lot of peace.
a lot of peace. That's tough. That's a tall order. Learning to be satisfied. There's one thing that I heard. It was actually in a tabletop book. Great quotes of some type. I'm sorry I can't tell you the source, but I was so impacted by this. The quote was, "It's very, very difficult to be satisfied with little, and it's impossible to be satisfied with much."
Mm.
And I believe
Yeah,
that to
that's
be
so
true.
true.
I believe that to be
Absolutely.
true.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to point out one thing, Lydia. We talked a lot here about corporate America and corporate jobs and that sort of thing and careers. Um, that's the path that most college graduates end up following because that's where the jobs are.
Right.
However, there's also the idea of building your own. and you can be an entrepreneur. You can decide to build your own business. Now, 9 out of 10 businesses fail.
Mm.
You're probably not a 90%er. You're probably in the top part of society if you've done well in college and graduated, and you have a good work ethic and a good head on your shoulders, and that sort of thing, then you're not necessarily going to be the 9 out of 10. But I will say, even if you have all the right tools in your toolbox, you're still going to fail when you try to build your own business, and you're going to fail over and over and over again. And that's because that's the path to learning and the path to success. We all have these crazy ideas about how new businesses and entrepreneurship works. We've heard stories, and we think, oh, build it and they will come. That's one of my favorite ones. You come up with some wonderful gizmo that the whole world needs, and all I have to do is create this gizmo. No, you have to have a marketing plan, or no one will ever know the gizmo exists. Matter of fact, I heard of a corporation that does all sorts of entrepreneurial projects, and they've been very, very successful. But what they do is they build a marketing plan first. And once they know they have their marketing plan rock solid and they're ready to go, then they say, okay, what's our product going to be?
Mm.
It sounds so backwards, but it's not. I'm telling you, that is the way to think of it. But I just wanted to point out that it's not all about corporate America. And here's a beautiful thing. If you are energetic, you are free of a lot of life's entanglements like family and children and a lot of debt, then you're in a great place to take risks and to try new things and to try to build those businesses. And there's so much we could talk about in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think we should do a lot of episodes on
We really
entrepreneurship
should.
eventually.
Yeah, entrepreneurship can be so liberating and delightful and so rewarding. But it's not for everybody.
Right.
And also, you have to realize that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're probably going to fail several times before you find the one thing that sticks and you're like, whoa, that really worked.
Mm. But
And
it's so freeing in a sense to be able to say, well, maybe I failed at this, but it was mine. It was a thing that I created, and I had the opportunity to do so, and I learned so much from
yeah,
doing that.
so I don't think of failures as failures, actually. I think of failures as learning opportunities.
Mm.
And because you're not failing if you're learning. Now, if you learn nothing from it, it was a failure. That was dismal. What were you doing?
Right.
But if you learned from it, then it wasn't a failure. It was a part of the pathway toward successful business. And I would like to say one more thing about entrepreneurship, and then we'll move on. But there are two major categories of entrepreneurship. There are lifestyle businesses, and those are when you build a business, it gives you enough, you work really hard, you make ends meet, and you love what you're doing. That's a lifestyle business, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The other type of entrepreneurial venture really is a venture. It's when you are trying to build something large and quickly so you can sell it and then do something else. And that's where
Mm.
venture capital and that sort of thing comes in. And that's exciting. You're rolling some big dice when you play that game. But I think people that succeed at venture in their entrepreneurial pursuits are the ones that usually hit the home runs, the big home runs. But that doesn't mean that they have the best lifestyle, that they've accomplished that rewarding lifestyle that they want. So think about it. If you want to build a business you love and you want to do it for your whole life, it's going to be a lifestyle business. And that's great. That's
Right.
fantastic. But if you want to do like a bigger venture and then maybe do a lot of them, you can become a serial entrepreneur. Then you can spend your lifetime creating new things, building them up and selling them, and then doing it all
Mm.
over again. And that can be very exciting as well. That's a different approach to entrepreneurship. So those things just kind of illustrate some of the paths that are open. Get a job in a corporation, try to climb the corporate ladder, or get a job you love to do and don't climb the corporate ladder. Be an entrepreneur with a lifestyle business, be an entrepreneur with a venture. You can also say, no, what I really want to do is I want to be a farmer,
Mm.
or I would love to spend the next 5 years driving a truck around America hauling stuff because I want to see what this big country looks like.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. That's great. It's fantastic. There's so many opportunities when you are starting out in life. So take full
Yeah.
advantage of it. Thank you so much for watching today. The conversation continues in How to Build a Life Part 2, which is episode 4. And we cover a lot of things. Let's see here. We have friendships, social life, and how that can benefit and hurt, wise financial management, career development, loving to learn, spiritual health and mental health, anxiety, depression. We talk about religion and even deceptions. So there's a heck of a lot more in the next episode on this very subject of how to build a life. And obviously, we're just hitting the highlights. We really look forward into diving into these subjects in depth in future episodes. But thanks for watching today. And as always, we love you guys. We'll see you next time.